Primer, Igniting a Fire Within by Father Thomas Dubay. Chapter 17, Assessing Progress. Beginners in prayer invariably assume as obvious, and often it takes years to get over the assumption, that they are growing in their prayer lives only when they enjoy pleasant feelings, consolations, and delight in their devotions. They sometimes think that they are listening to the Holy Spirit, when actually they may be welcoming their own preferences and persuasions. On the other hand, it is equally obvious to them, if not more so, that their prayer is nothing or close to nothing when they feel dry, empty, distracted, and without any delight. It would be difficult to exaggerate the strength of these two convictions. Yet years in the experience of giving spiritual direction to many sincere people make plain how badly mistaken these assumptions can be. Delight in prayer can be good and given by God, but not all pleasant feelings derive from Him. They are not necessarily signs of progress. On the other hand, dryness and emptiness in prayer may be due to willed mediocrity on our part, and when such is the case, they are also not signs of progress. Quite the contrary. Signs of deepening prayer. How then could we know when we are genuinely growing in our communion with the indwelling Lord? Emotions alone give no sure answer, but the Gospels do, and so do the saints. Jesus himself gave us the surefire way to discern authenticity, to know what is genuine and what is not. From their fruits you will know them. Matthew 7:20. We are growing in meditation and contemplation to the extent that we are advancing in humility, patience, love, purity, and all the virtues. The same idea is supposed in 2 John 6. To love is to live the commandments, to live a life of love. Notice, to love is not necessarily to feel good. It is to do what is right, no matter what our emotions may or may not register. Truth makes a beautiful whole, resplendent in its harmony. When we live truth, we live all the virtues. Our prayer grows in authenticity, depth, and beauty, according as the rest of our life grows in authenticity, depth, and beauty. From their fruits you will know them. We cannot control how we feel, but we can control what we do and do not do. What then, we ask, are some good examples of the signs of growing intimacy with God? Virtuous living. There is an intercausality between holy living and closeness to God. Each one produces the other, and in both directions. To be humble, patient, magnanimous, and zealous is to grow in intimacy with the Lord. In the opposite direction, to be deep in Him prompts us to develop in each of these virtues and in all the others as well. Hence, whether we feel dry and empty at prayer or full of consolation and delight, if the virtues are flourishing, if we are growing in selfless love and fidelity to our duties of state, our prayer is growing. There is nothing merely sentimental here. These are down-to-earth facts. Authenticity works. Generosity in serving others. There is only one virtue of love, and by it we love God, ourselves, and our neighbours, whether the latter are attractive or not. And love is not love unless it is ready to serve, to seek another's benefit, even to prefer another's advantage over our own. Much of what the world considers love is a mere attraction or self-centered lust or ignoble egocentrism. What can I get from you? If you salute those who salute you, what good is that? Asked Jesus, Matthew 5:47. The perfect picture of genuine love is the same Lord on the cross. When we love as He loved us, we have a deep prayer life. Being drawn to a healthy solitude. Some people may think that this sign is incompatible with serving others. Quite the contrary is the case. Why? As we have already noted, and in our noisy age it may be wise to note it again, solitude is not isolation. It is a time to be alone with the Supreme alone, and this is necessary for our personal growth. Isolation is rejecting others, and this is, of course, damaging to oneself and to others as well. Two people in love, real love, spontaneously desire, and with good reason, to be alone with each other. They have worthwhile things to share. A person growing in closeness to God increasingly seeks to be alone with him, often in a wordless presence to presence. Love for the Church. St. Augustine, in Vatican Council II, which cited him, made the classical remark that a person possesses the Holy Spirit to the extent of his love for Christ's Church. Jesus in the New Testament so identifies himself with the Church he founded and loved into being that he is able to say, "He who hears you hears me, and he who rejects you rejects me," Luke 10:16, and "As long as you did it to the least of mine, you did it to me," Matthew 25:40. It has been a striking trait of the saints through the centuries, even into our own day, that men and women of deep prayer, genuine prayer, are outstanding in their love for the Church, the temple of the Holy Spirit on earth. Embracing factual frugality. You may have already noticed two traits in these signs of growth in prayer depth. One is that they are all Christocentric, rooted in the Lord himself, which is to say that they are divinely originated. The other trait is that they are like pieces in a gorgeous mosaic. They present a splendid picture of what gospel holiness is in every state of life. So also factual frugality. Married saints, as well as their clerical and religious brothers and sisters, dislike superfluities, what they and their families do not need. One reason for this unusual outlook, so unlike that of worldly people, is that people close to God love other people too, with a self-sacrificing love. Logically enough, they want to share their material goods with those who suffer want. They are happy to give up what does not lead to God. These men and women are well aware that in this life we are all only pilgrims, here but for a short time, and our Master had no place to lay his head. As their prayer deepens, they progressively discover that the most precious things in life are free of charge. In their Supreme Beloved, they have everything they need and more. Attraction to the cross. Yes, this trait also is nonsense to the worldly minded. Suffering with love is another name for this sign of deep prayer. Everyone suffers. Some profit from it, and some do not. The former suffer with love and in union with Jesus being tortured to death for us. The latter are loveless and perhaps bitter, often finding fault with everyone but themselves. Suffering of itself does not improve a person. If you and I become grouchy or cynical in our hardships, we are getting worse, not better. But if we embrace the pain with willed love, we are growing. By ourselves, of course, we cannot do this, but with the aid of advancing prayer, we then have the strength based on his own glorious power to bear anything joyfully. Imagine anything joyfully. This is a mark of a splendid human being, one being transformed from one glory to another into the divine image. This is part of a real growth in prayer intimacy with purest joy and love, the Lord himself. Absence of self-centeredness. Egocentrism is a clear consequence of original sin. A baby is entirely absorbed in its own tiny being, though with no guilt. Only with slow formation and decades of effort are we gradually freed from selfish focusing on our desires, preferences, and pleasures. Purifying contemplative prayer is an indispensable help in giving up an absorption in ourselves. Impatience, laziness, vanities, overindulgences in food and drink, desires to be noticed and praised. Falling more deeply in love as prayer grows prompts us to surrender gladly to the Lord's conquering delight, to borrow St. Augustine's expression, a delight that immeasurably surpasses the trivialities of worldliness. And this suggests our final sign of making progress in prayer. God, focus of habitual attention. Anyone in love needs no prodding to be reminded of the beloved. Where our treasure is, there also our heart will be, as Jesus himself put it. St. Paul had a similar thought. Since we have risen with Christ, so our minds are to be on the things above, not on those of earth. That is, our minds should be spontaneously centred on the indwelling Trinity. As contemplation deepens, we are less and less drawn to the shallow amusements of the worldly. Useless and even harmful television, idle gossip, overindulgent dining and drinking. Having the best, we are disinclined toward the least. A final caution is a forewarning. Even with all our assurances about these genuine marks of valuable prayer and its growth, they are hard to believe and to apply to oneself when the going gets rough. Clear as these signs are, experience shows that they easily fade into oblivion when they are most needed. So distressing are the experiences of dryness and apparent emptiness, especially when they are protracted, that people can scarcely believe that their situation is worthwhile. This chapter, therefore, needs to be read and reread over and over, especially later on when it seems that nothing is happening during the times I give to prayer.